People who watch security cameras for a living, what creepy things have you tried to forget? Years ago, I worked overnight at a homeless shelter for men. A good portion of the regular guys that stayed there had mental health or drug problems. There were a lot of fights and the occasional stabbing, but for the most part, everyone was relatively behaved, and most were good people at heart. I received a lot of threats, but one ever acted on them. One night when I arrived for my shift, I noticed there was a much larger police presence than usual. I walked into our office, and the officer in charge started asking me if I had noticed a guy, Richard, behaving unusually at all lately. I had not saw anything out of the ordinary, and I told them such. I looked at the dorm list and noted that he was marked as no longer staying at the shelter. He was a long-term resident, so I thought this was odd. The police left without telling me anything except the fact they needed security footage from 2 specific cameras from the night before. I did not work the night before, and the guy I normally work with pulled a no-show. We were the only 2 people besides the manager, who was on a holiday, that were trained on how to burn footage to a DVD. I spent the rest of my shift in shock. When I found the footage they were looking for, I felt physically ill. Richard had gone out onto the second-floor smoking deck, finished a cigarette, got up on the railing, and dove headfirst onto the cement below. The first camera on the second floor showed him jump, but the second camera on the first floor was much more gruesome. He landed headfirst and rolled over in a way that he was staring right into the camera as he lay there dying. I quickly put the footage on DVD and went to throw up. I was given the next day off. No counseling, no nothing. I will never forget that one. He was a pretty good dude as far as I knew him. Some mental issues, but no one knew he was suicidal or why he did it. Not a job, but my spouse and I have the outlet monitor for our infant looking at his crib and room. It's set up like security cameras, and it's creepy to begin with. I wake up at 2 a.m., and I go check on him, and I go back to bed. Once in bed, I get on my phone to view the monitor just for reassurance, and I see 2 light dots like eyes in night vision in the window of his room. I first shit my pants, and I go in the room to check everything out. I can't see anything outside, so I turn on the monitor again and don't see the dots anymore, so I think it could be a dog or something. I go back to bed and wake up again an hour later to check the monitor, and the dots are fucking there again. So I grab a pistol and go outside around his room and check the spot by the window, really ready to have to pull the trigger. Adrenaline is on full blast. I don't find or see anything, but the monkey grass has been mashed down by that window like something sat there for a while. I set up a sleeping bag in my son's room after that for a couple of nights, and I checked the monitor so I could see what the night vision caught, but I never saw those lights again. I'm super thankful it was just that, but I was scared. Edit, I am usually skeptical about stuff like this. I considered lights and stuff, and I hope it was an animal, not a person. Fucking messed up person, but my son is now 6 months. This happened when he was 4 months old, and the camera has been there since we brought him home. The whole time it's been up, I've never seen that, and I don't live by traffic lights, and no street lamp is on that side of the house. I seriously almost lost bladder control when I saw them again, same spot just an hour later. But when I went in his room and looked at my phone, I just saw me and him and black window. It freaked me out so much I prepared to defend my family, but he's 6 months now and I've never seen it again, so hopefully an animal. Not for a living, but we had security cameras installed on the property whilst we were living in South Africa. We had a monitor set up next to the bed so we could see what was happening on the 4 cameras without having to get up out of bed. One night we heard something, so we turn on the monitor and see nothing unusual. I'm ready to go back to sleep, but my partner thinks something is off about one of the cameras. Does this camera look like it's pointing in a different direction slightly? She asks. No, same as always, and it's back to bed for me. She isn't convinced, so she starts watching the recordings. True enough, footage of some dude prowling around on the property, and the camera catches him adjusting it. The terrifying bit? The way his face looked beneath the balaclava. Murder mask is what my SO called it. Pretty creepy shit. I work in a retail store, and for a while I worked security here. Watching the security cameras wasn't technically my job, but we were consistently shorthanded in that department, and the manager was grooming me for promotion. So I got to fill in and watch the cameras occasionally. One day when we were reviewing footage from overnights, we saw this teenager calmly set down his shopping basket take off his hat and glasses, and just charge at a wall, hit it head on. He did this 2 more times. When he was done, his face was a bloody mess, and he put his hat and glasses back on and just left. Weirded me right the hell out. Was a security coordinator for a large electric company and had access to like 80+ facilities' CCTV infrastructures. Was doing maintenance check on some random train station at like 3 a.m., panned a camera as far to the right as possible to check that it was functioning, and this dude was on all fours eating a deer in the middle of the tracks. Watched him for like 10 minutes and went to get the other guy on shift. When I came back, the dude was gone. Rewound it, and the dude stopped munching on the carcass, wiped the gore off his face, and walked into the woods like he didn't have a care in the world. Wasn't a security officer, but I worked at a 24/7 gas station for a while. One night my coworker accidentally killed himself while at work, and I made the mistake of watching the footage. He went to the back of the store with a bag of drugs, probably cocaine, snorted it and started acting funny for about 10 minutes. He then sits in the back office and gets fidgety thrashing around until finally he just goes limp in the chair. He had died of a heart attack and sat there for 5 hours before anybody came in. Thought the absence of an employee was strange and called the cops. It was really weird seeing people come in and act all pissy for the lack of service. They'd just leave thinking someone was lazy, but nah, dude was dead. I was watching the parking lot's security footage, and on level 9 there's a guy sitting in the middle of the parking lot, banging his head against one of the poles. Suddenly the guy stops and runs to the edge. Without stopping or jumping, he throws himself over the edge. I immediately called the dispatcher and told him what had happened. A few days later, I was offered counseling about those events. I used to work loss prevention for a big box store. We had a lady get arrested for public indecency, and I was asked to investigate. I had to follow her backwards from the point of arrest, and it was a trip to say the least. She arrived at the store swerving and nearly hitting several cars. She entered the store with 2 young children, both of whom are mentally handicapped. That lady literally dragged those kids around the store, slapping them and tugging at their ears and collars if they didn't obey. At some point, she just abandons them in the clothing section, walks through the back doors to the break area, and I'm assuming she thought it was the bathroom because she proceeds to pull down her pants and shits all over the fire exit door. She pulls her pants up without wiping, mind you, and goes back to the floor like nothing happened. Someone saw what she did and followed her. Luckily, there's an officer in the store at the time and quickly approaches her when the associate tells him what she did. Needless to say, she was definitely high and/or drunk and was arrested. The scary part is, she did not mention those kids not one time. It wasn't until I reviewed the tape that I saw they were just still waiting by the shopping cart, completely oblivious and afraid to move. Child Services was later called, and I still think about those kids often. Breaks my heart to think about the bullshit those kids must still be going through. I used to do IT support for a company that had a lot of heavy machinery moving around inside a big warehouse-type area. This giant front-end loader would scoop up material and dump it into a hopper. Along the sides of the floor were these huge concrete barriers. I've heard them called Jersey barriers in mafia blocks, but they are about 10 feet tall. And this one guy's life was ended when the front-end loader inadvertently scooped the base of the barrier and landed on one of 2 guys walking shoulder to shoulder through the plant. I was tasked to review the footage, then make copies. 6 of them, to be exact, and then ensure that the footage worked and was self-executable and able to be run from a USB stick. So I had to watch the footage of this guy get killed over a dozen times. I too was offered counseling for just watching the video. I was working at pub in Sydney and watching the security cameras when I saw a guy continually cross and uncross his legs while playing a poker slot machine. After a few minutes, he walked to a corner of the room, took a shit, and proceeded to go back to playing his machine. Talk about being addicted. Edit. Holy shit, this blew up. To answer some of your questions, this kind of thing is not rare. Mostly it's people pissing themselves. These machines are evil and designed to get people addicted, and that results in some people not being able to pull themselves away, even to use a bathroom. Finally, thank God I'm a manager, but telling someone it was their job sucked.
Today I'm bidding you farewell, but it's not the end of our connection. Hop on over to the channel, drop a comment sharing your thoughts, and ensure you're subscribed. Because trust me, you won't want to miss out on the exciting things coming up.